Making this video about the very sad situation of Joe Paterno. So every sport fan in America knows who he is, but in case you don't, he just last week achieved the distinction of being the winningest football coach ever in American history. His teams have won more than anybody else. He's 84 years old. He's been the head coach at Penn State University for decades. He's worked there for 61 years. And now, in his 84th year, he's 84 years old, his 85th year, he has to resign because of the sex scandal involving this guy, Joe Sandusky, who was his defensive coordinator, no longer employed by the university, but evidently was still using university facilities for a program. Problem was that evidently he has had, allegedly, relations with young boys, and one such incident was witnessed by a graduate student who reported it to Paterno. Paterno did the proper thing. He advanced it to his superiors there, but he didn't himself call the authorities. Now, his superiors have been indicted for perjury, for lying about it in the possible cover-up. Paterno has not been accused of anything illegal, but enough of a moral failure that the university wants him to resign, which he's going to do at the end of the year. And what he said about the following, he said, "I have come to work every day for the last 61 years with the clear goal in mind to serve the best interests of the university and the young men to whom who've been entrusted to me. This is one of the great sorrows of my life. With the benefits of hindsight, I wish I had done more." Well, don't we all face that situation? With the benefits of hindsight, which we had done more or done things differently. So, how do you evaluate then that the Paterno didn't himself commit any immoral act personally, except he didn't do more to report an act that allegedly was immoral and illegal? Now, the Torah exists for this purpose, to give us advanced notions of how we should behave and to try and measure ourselves against those. And there's two principles from the center of the Torah that I want to mention today, from Leviticus 19, the holiness code. One is a phrase that probably most of you know. It's the first time that it occurs in literature, but it occurs in virtually every culture, which is Ahavta re'acha kamocha, a version of the golden rule. This is the original one: love thy neighbor as thyself. That what Paterno should be of thought, based on that verse, is if that was my son in that locker room, being whatever that Joe Sandusky allegedly was doing to him, would I have acted the same way? How would I act if it was me? And apply that principle to life. Obviously, he didn't do that, and that's the failure. But there's another verse that's less well known, but very important in this operation and in this moral question. I want to tell you a story first before I tell you that verse. I've mentioned before in other videos the story of Abraham Joshua Heschel, who was a very prominent Jewish scholar of the 20th century. He started out as a chassid, and he left Chassidut, ultra-Orthodox living, to go to the University of Berlin this was right before Hitler, and study philosophy. And he eventually left philosophy because he decided that philosophy asks the penultimate question, the second most important question, which is how to be good. Not the most important question. And he said Judaism asks the most important question, which is how to be kadosh, how to be holy. In other words, to be good, you could simply say that your legal obligation in the situation that Paterno found himself in was to report it to his higher-ups. But maybe that's not the holy thing to do. The holy thing to do might have been to take more aggressive action, and certainly to stop Sandusky from using university facilities, and probably to report him to the authorities. And there lies the other verse that's operative here, which is Lo ta'amod al dam re'echa. Lo ta'amod, don't stand, al dam, on the blood of re'echa, of your neighbor. It uses the same word as love thy neighbor as thyself, re'echa. If you have a neighbor and you see them being hurt in some way, you have to stop it. You have to intervene. That's the way of holiness. That's the way of the Torah. That's something that Paterno failed to do. And so in evaluating this situation, I think it's a very good lesson, a life lesson about Torah values, about not only applying in every moment of our life, if we can, love thy neighbor as thyself, and don't stand idly by while the blood of your neighbor is spilled. Because here's the true tragedy, besides the horrible thing that happened to those boys, and that Sandusky was allowed, allegedly, to do this for all these years. You have a guy here, Joe Paterno, one of the most famous sports figures ever in American history, 84 years old, towards the end of his life. He's had a sterling character. He's revered in Penn State and throughout America. He made Penn State a famous university because of his coaching, 2 national championships. He probably was going to retire at the end of this year anyway. And now he has to retire in disgrace because of, in hindsight, I should have done more. Yes. And so it's a lesson for all of us. In hindsight, I should have done more. That it's not enough just to be good, but it's necessary to be holy.